So this is another founding car, and again a little bit more towards EDC Every Day Carry, but the spirit behind that, just to think if you can do something that makes your life better.
Verlaat de rotonde bij de tweede
especially when the conditions are becoming a little bit more detrimental, especially in the finance department, because things are getting expensive.
Volg de weg 2 kilometer.
Energy is getting very expensive, but also food. So the cost of living is becoming very high. And in the past, people also had these things to overcome, and people can overcome a lot. Especially if you keep faith, then you can go through dire situations, especially if you believe in God, that will help you. But back to the topic, in the past people also kept some animals at their home. For example, my granddad had chickens. Chickens produce eggs, of course, but also can be used as a source of meat or trade, something to trade. And also he kept a pig, so he bought a small piglet and then fed that pig with just natural waste, so things out of the garden, but also things that the people did not eat anymore, or would otherwise go to waste. That's the reason why we all know the description of a piggy bank. Yes, it's
de M264 verder.
So piggy bank is something that where you save some little coins in, and when the time is needed, you break the piggy. In the past they were made of ceramics.
Verlaat de rotonde bij de tweede afrit.
And when you break it, of course you sacrifice the piggy, and then you can get access to the coins, for example, that are inside. And it was in the past a reality. So they had a pig and they put things into the pig, sometimes food that they could use if they don't have enough waste, but oftentimes waste, so pocket money, so to say. But when the time would rise, they could slaughter the pig and then get meat out of that. It could be even better if you have a pig.
En volg de M264 verder.
Pig which you get pregnant, so you use a boar to mount the sow, and that results in little piglets again.
En volg de straat rondweg Zuid verder.
Then you have something that produces something, without a pig on itself also produces meat, but once you sacrifice it, it's all gone. You can of course sell a part again and then get a new little pig.
De rotonde bij de tweede afrit.
For the amount of meat that you produce, that could also be a reason. But if you could produce your own little piglets, this is a good thing. But there are other animals, like the chickens that I mentioned, that produce also without the need to be sacrificed. So for example, chickens can produce little chicks, but even if you don't have a rooster, they still produce eggs, and eggs you can eat or sell or trade or whatever. And that's also the case, for example, with a cow. So a cow, a cow can produce meat on its own, so just bulking up, but also can produce calves, so little.
Meter links aan. Verlaat daarna de rotonde bij de eerste afrit en volg de M264 verder.
So little cows again. If you have also a bull that can mount that cow and then produce again. But even if you don't have a bull, cows can produce milk. But oftentimes the cows produce better milk.
Houd hier links aan.
Once they are
daarna de rotonde bij de eerste afrit.
Pregnant and delivered, the little cows, so oftentimes it goes hand in hand.
Verlaat de rotonde
And
bij
it's
de
the
eerste
same with
afrit.
goats. So goats can produce meat, and also new goats, but also goat milk. And a goat is a little bit smaller than a cow, for example, you might not have the room for a cow, but perhaps you have the room for a goat or a few goats. That you even have your own male goat and two females, for example. That could be a good thing, huh? Or the other thing is that I mentioned a pig, but in the past pigs were very big, and that's beneficial if you want to have big amount of meat gains. But perhaps that is too big for you. But nowadays they also have very small pigs, and if you are not keeping them for meat, but for example selling them, those small pigs often get you premium over those big ones, which is a little bit contradictory, but it's the case, because those small pigs can easier be used in a broader scale of environments. So those are some examples, and especially goats are very hardy. You could also keep sheep, and sheep have the benefit that they also produce fiber, for example wool. So if that's something that you like, you could look into that. There are also some goats breeds that produce a little bit of fiber. Some people also use the skin, so to make a coat out of something from a goat or a cow. Cow, we all know cow leather is one of the most used sources of leather, if not the most. So for example your shoes and your jacket, belts, they're all made of cow leather. That could be a way to approach this. But also there are some other things that you could consider. There are smaller mammals that are also an option. For example rabbits, or that can reproduce and produce meat. They don't produce milk or whatever. They have one of the richest milks, but it's not suitable for humans. Or guinea pigs even. In some countries they also use them as a meat production. It must be something that you are down for, because there are a lot more rodents like than for example rabbit is. And there are literally plethora of birds. There are also some other mammals that you could look into, but for example llamas, that might be suitable for you. But
verlaat de rotonde na 300 meter bij de tweede afrit en volg de straat Lipstad-Singel verder.
I mentioned the main ones. You could also look into camels or donkeys or horses. They're all fine, but they don't have the benefits that, for example, a similarly sized cow or a goat does have, or even a pig. So could of course be considered, and if you're more into those, please do, but they have less production capabilities. In that sense, they might be better.
Verlaat de rotonde bij de tweede afrit. Ga daarna rechtdoor.
For other purposes, if you have to pull something, they might be better than bulls, horses, or donkeys, or mules that are a little bit in between the horse and the donkey. Or if you want to ride them yourself, they are also better. So for passenger transport. So they have their own benefits, but just pure as a production of meat or other sources, they are less capable compared to the ones that I did mention. And what you see nowadays, that's a little bit of a horror to many people, is that you also see that there's more and more production of insects. So what do? They use insects. Because they have insects have a lot less demand of food compared to other creatures. So they can live in very small confinement because they are just insects. They can reproduce fast. And they are very effective in converting feed to meat, so to say. So the feed conversion rate is very high, which is beneficial. So you need little amount of food to give them, and oftentimes insects are also not that picky, so you can feed them a wide range of food, and then they produce quite well. The other thing is, of course, that you can eat everything of them because they don't have bones. So for example, most mammals, when you're trying to eat them, this is not so much the case with poultry, you will lose a lot of weight because there's bones, etc. Poultry also have bones, but they are very light in comparison to the rest, and oftentimes they also have a very small head. So for example, if you compare the head of a chicken to the body size and you compare the head of a guinea pig to the body size, so if you lose that part, the guinea pig, you will lose a lot of meat and weight, and with a chicken you will lose minimum amount of weight and meat. So that's a big plus, so to say, if you look at from a meat conversion viewpoint. But insects you can eat whole, and some people have larvae of many type of insects which they just use over and over and use waste products on. So it's a little bit like the pig. You just put your waste in and those insects produce meat then for you. But it's not my cup of tea, and many people it's not their cup of tea. I tried some insects and they tasted kinda alright. I thought them to be quite fatty in nature, but it could also be the type of insects. On the other hand, shrimps, etc. are like insects, and we do eat them and we do love them, and they're paying premium for eating them. So it's also a little bit of a mindset shift. Grasshopper, for example, or crickets, I think, would be a very nice source of meat. From the insects that I did eat, I like the crickets and the grasshopper the most. But they are not the animals kept mostly for meat production
21 kilometer.
and being an insect. Hope the short video helps. Foundering car out.